We got some morale information today from the Warhammer community site. Again, more on Warhammer 40k 8th edition. Morale is one of those things that you were either affected by it or you didn't care about it. And in tournaments, we saw a lot of people that would take units that specifically just didn't care about morale. And they mentioned here that it was part of their concern, or at least they thought it was slowing the game down, that a unit could conceivably take 5, 6, morale test a turn, and then you had to deal with things like falling back and regrouping and whatever. That's all been taken out. There's no more multi-phase morale testing. There is no more falling back or regrouping. You are simply going to take a morale test at the end of the phase that takes into account everything that may have happened to your unit in the previous phases of the game. Now, this is pretty big, and it's going to be removing. I mean, I think we're going to be moving a lot of models off the table, but more to that. I'm sure there's some complexity that hasn't been revealed to us yet. Essentially, what you do now, at least as they describe it, is you add up all the casualties taken by a unit, roll a single D6, a single die 6, add that together, and then you lose models based on how much you beat their leadership score by. I think the models word there is very important because multi-wound models, if you've got a unit with a relatively low morale that has multiple wounds that you take, with the way they've got it described here, let's say you've got an 8 leadership, you take 3 casualties, you roll a 4, so then that puts you up to 7, so you're good on D8. You roll a 6, you could be removing multiple multi-wound models off the table. We don't know if that's true or not. Maybe you just take wounds. Maybe there's going to be more about that in the rules, the actual rules we get ourselves. But I think if we just take what they're saying here at face value, then things like Thunderwolf Cavalry, could be a real liability as they start to take full casualties. Now, obviously, they have to take more wounds to actually receive a casualty that stacks against them in morale. But anyway, you can kind of get where I'm going here, that there's stuff we don't know, stuff we can assume, but I think this is going to be problematic for some armies that have just relied on not having to take that test or always being able to regroup or something later on down the road. But the no regroup test is huge. Just removing casualties is big. This may make some armies, like say you've got a horde army, that they pile on and you take 12 casualties or something, and then you have to take this test. Because I think there's going to be a focus on things not ignoring this anymore. Then they go on to say that there's going to be models that help boost it, such as they give a Dark Apostle as one of the examples here that allows him to share his leadership score to other legions or other members of his legion. But even that's not a real big buffer when you think his leadership is probably 10. And then you've got something along the lines, you take 5 casualties on a unit, or 3 casualties on a unit, then you roll this D6, you're probably still going to be losing some additional casualties, which should have us a little bit nervous, if you ask me, or at least not. We're going to have to change how we play the game, which is this above all else that we've seen so far is going to make some drastic change to people's army. Now, fearless units, what does that mean? Is it going to make it to where we ignore the test? I don't get the impression of that from this article that we got. What I get from this is like fearless may just add to it. Like, wouldn't it be neat, and this is pure speculation, wouldn't it be neat if things like fearless and they shall know no fear just gave us an additional buffer? Like maybe you get to ignore the first X casualties or something from the wounds you took that phase. Again, pure speculations. I have no idea. What we do take away from this is that you add up the casualties, add a D6, compare it to your leadership score, and then you remove models for everything that you beat your leadership score by. No more fleeing, no more regrouping. We're going to be in a game where things are going to be deadly. There's going to be consequences for our actions, or bigger risk versus reward things. I think with both your army, your unit selection, and maybe what you do on the table. So you want to run them out of cover, exposing them to more threats. You potentially take more casualties, which could gut that unit. Anyway, I'm really anxious to see how this plays out. But I think this extra strategy, this extra element, this slight bit of more randomization, but certainly a lot more brutality that we've seen in the game. Really looking forward to it.